A teacher said to me once that the mystic is at home in any church. And I feel that for myself too, that I can go into these cathedrals and see them as kind of religious machines. And I think in some cases, the owner's manual has been lost, that never gets quite up and running and firing as it maybe could have in the past. And but I'm curious for you, like, why is it helpful or useful to still go to church, having the understanding that you're kind of seeing through a lot of it and you're going in with perhaps a different mindset than a lot of the congregation? Why is it important to still go and to be in that?
Well, when I do go, I think it's because you might say Christianity or Christian is my first spiritual language.
Mm,
I've read in Sufism fairly widely now, and certainly Vedantic traditions from the Indian subcontinent speak to me. These broadly theistic traditions. But Christianity is the one that I know, and so it's useful for me to find a way of talking about it. And, perhaps a bit like you were saying with the figure of Jesus, he is someone that I can't quite let go of. And so it was really important for me. And again, Owen Barfield helped a lot in this, to try and make contact with this figure of Jesus in a way that I could wholeheartedly do so and not feel I constantly had to sort of shed this, shed that, sift through something else. And it is Christianity less so, but still is in the air that we breathe in the West, and still has a huge amount to offer and open up. And then, maybe having to do the work to find that true spirit actually is part of finding what it's got to offer. So
mm,
rather than it just being a kind of cultural Christianity that is good at supporting society, and that's not to be sniffed at. It's good to live in a stable society, but nonetheless, I don't think at heart Christianity is about just maintaining the status quo. Quite the opposite. It's about perceptual transformation. It's about the kingdom of God. And so, yeah, I'm kind of glad to be wrestling with it. Put it like that.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like almost obliged to wrestle with it because it was so important to my ancestors. Only two generations ago, it was only in my parents' generation that there was a refusal of their spiritual inheritance. But just beyond that, my ancestors were deeply spiritual people. It was really the core of their life and guided them through their lives. And so it feels to me that maybe my ancestors are dragging me back to wrestle with this. Maybe it's this figure of Christ himself. But regardless, I can't turn away from it. And it has actually, like, now that you're kind of talking about your own experience, I do see how the wrestling has been so important for me in feeling more grounded in my spirituality, feeling more honest or authentic in it, having done some wrestling and continuing to do so, which I don't feel settled at the moment. But there is something that feels like this is just where I should be at this point. It's hard to articulate
Yeah,
for me.
I think actually, it's actually engaging with other traditions that has helped me feel more connected to the strand of the Christian tradition that does feel alive and speak to me. And so the Vedantic traditions, particularly Advaita Vedanta, that often called non-dualism now, but the idea that the being that I know in me and the being that's in you is one being, and we're just as many mirrors or reflections of that. This kind of felt spirituality, having that articulated in a particular kind of language has enabled me to say return to the sayings of Jesus, the thoughts of St. Paul, and realized that they were driving at the same thing. So like in John's Gospel, where Jesus is said to have talked about how being in the Father is not just for him, but is for all followers. And then when Paul develops the sense of taking on the mind of Christ, you know, that comes alive for me, rather than just being comments that seem esoteric and obscure, and don't really fit into, say, liturgies that you might come across in church. So yeah, that kind of, I mean, another little bit of my own journey was learning to meditate, and doing that particularly through a school that was deeply influenced by Tibetan Buddhism. And in a funny sort of way, I think I never learned to pray in the Church of England before that point, because prayer was always about sort of petitioning, which again stresses the gap and the difference, and wasn't ever really taught as something that you could actually learn, at least in the first instance. And it was something you kind of tried to do, and it seemed like the lucky kind of got the knack. So this sort of Western school based on Tibetan ideas was really crucial for just learning the basics of sitting and breathing and paying attention and all those kind of basic things. But that then opened up the contemplative tradition. I then realized that I was a theist rather than, certainly as sort of Western Buddhism comes across as sort of non-theist, if not exactly atheist, but certainly non-theist. I realized that I was the theistic sense made increasing sense to me. So then sort of, that's why I moved in a more Vedantic way. But yeah, that kind of has helped me to yeah, wholeheartedly embrace what I think a lot of Christian mystics from the time of Jesus, from Jesus himself, have been driving at. But you know, because it lives, I feel it can live inside me. I get what they're talking about in a felt, direct way, rather than just juggling it in my head.